Greetings, happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show. My name is Aaron McIntyre, joined by Todd Aaron. Steve is out today. Don't worry, though. He's fine, health-wise, family-wise. He's fine globally, internationally, kinetically. He's just fine. He just needs to be out today. Hopefully the last kind of scheduling aberration for quite some time. Not to worry, though. You'll hear from him a little bit as we hear from the kind folks and partners in advertising that help make this show possible. You are in hopefully capable and just as mediocre hands. Well, we probably shouldn't say that about Steve. We just hope to bring you the level of mediocrity on this program you're accustomed to every single day, I should say. Coming up later on the show today, we will play a game of fake news or not, featuring a thread from our very own Glenn Beck that he put out a little while ago. We will go tweet by tweet through that. Should be an interesting conversation. Jordan Schachtel, independent journalist and really one of the better writers on a number of issues, will be joining us at the bottom of this hour. There's something called Davos Comes to China. What could go wrong? We'll discuss that with him, along with a couple of other things he's been writing about. Anna Hibbs will be joining us. I almost said Deace again. Anna Hibbs will be joining us at the bottom of hour 2. I understand there's some TikTok torture coming our way, Todd. So, you know,
of course,
a reward for pinch hitting for Steve today is being tortured by his daughter. So that's cool. That's cool. Also, Pop Culture Tuesday will be coming up as well at the bottom of hour number 2. Going to be talking about a new feature film that BlazeTV is putting out here in the next few days called Reopening. I got a chance to watch a screener along with my wife last week. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. We'll get into that when that time comes. But as always, Steve may be out. I am not, though, which means it's time for What Happened While We Were Away. What happened while we were away, brought to you by Another Day That Ends in Y. The nation saw its second largest bank failure ever yesterday as regulators seized the struggling First Republic Bank, selling it off to a pre-selected buyer, JP Morgan Chase. The only larger bank failure in U.S. history was Washington Mutual, which collapsed at the height of the 2008 financial crisis and was also taken over by JP Morgan in a similar government-orchestrated deal. The Biden administration is ending the COVID jab mandates for federal employees, federal contractors, and international travelers. The jab mandate will end on May 11th, when the Biden administration is officially declaring an end to the public health emergency. According to the federal government, about 98% of its employees received at least one dose of the gene juice. A twice-deported illegal alien by the name of Francisco Oropesa murdered 5 of his neighbors execution-style, including a young boy, after his neighbors allegedly asked the man to stop firing his rifle in his backyard so a baby could sleep. This all happened on Friday night in Cleveland, Texas, just outside of Houston. In response to that heinous tragedy, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre obscenely assured the nation the southern border has never been more secure.
He has tools that he's used to make sure that we do this. We actually deal with the immigration system in a humane way, and in a way that is that actually deals with what we're seeing at the border. And that's why you've seen the parolee program be so successful. It has when it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%, and that's because of the actions that this president has taken.
Bud Light sales continue to sink as the Dylan Mulvaney fallout nears its 1-month anniversary. According to Beer Business Daily, Bud Light's off-premise sales volume, the amount of beer sold outside of restaurants and bars, was down 26.1% from a year earlier in the week ending in April 22nd. That's even worse than the 21.1% decrease from the week prior. Those figures include sales at grocery stores, convenience stores, and liquor stores. GOP presidential hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy, who nobody knew about until 5 minutes ago and has no legislative accomplishments or political record, talked to Reason about Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis just says whatever he thinks the political base wants to hear in a given moment. He doesn't have independent thoughts of his own. He responds to Twitter and the effects of it. So I don't know what Ron DeSantis thinks. I just know what comes out of his mouth reflects what he thinks is going to achieve that dopamine hit in getting a Twitter trend. So I think Ron DeSantis is sloppy. I think Ron DeSantis is sloppy because he doesn't have an understanding of why he's doing what he's doing. I think that, and it's a shame that he has screwed this up in many ways that have folks like yourselves, maybe, and person who asked that question, understandably irritated when somebody says they're fighting wokeness. First of all, that's how I'm labeled. I never actually say that I'm waging a war on wokeness. I say I'm on a crusade to revive a missing national identity. Those are different things. That's what's me versus Ron DeSantis is different. Is Ron DeSantis
got a book called
is a troll.
In completely unrelated news, Ron DeSantis signed a bill yesterday enacting the death penalty for child rapists.
We think that in the worst of the worst cases, the only appropriate punishment is the ultimate punishment. We really believe that part of a just society is to have appropriate punishment. And so if you commit a crime that is really, really heinous, you should have the ultimate punishment.
Back to Vivek, who went on Chuck Todd's show on NBC to talk about gender ideology.
But below the age of 18, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that we won't allow genital mutilation or chemical castration through puberty blockers for the purpose of gender transition.
But how do you know it's that? Again, how do you know, are you confident that you know that gender is as binary as you're describing it? Are you confident that it isn't a spectrum?
I am.
You know this as a scientist?
Well, there's two X chromosomes if you're a woman, an X and a Y. That means you're a man.
There's a lot of scientific research out there. There's a lot of scientific research out there that says gender is a spectrum.
Speaking of the science and a different Vivek, in response to Dr. Anthony Fauci telling the New York Times last week that masks don't work, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy went on CNN recently to explain why.
Do you see how some find this an extremely significant statement? Because for most of us, we were told it didn't matter what kind of mask. Any mask was good. Our kids had to wear masks for an extra year and a half in school, and none of them wore them the right way. That hearing that, may be good that he's saying it, but that hearing that is upsetting to a lot of people.
Well, I can certainly understand that for many people who were listening closely to the messages that were coming through and guidance as to what to do, when they recognize that sometimes guidance shifted and evolved over time, that could be disconcerting. And sometimes the guidance does evolve over time as you learn more.
And now an Aaron's Razor update. It's just demonic, bro. At something called SatanCon in Boston, Massachusetts over the weekend, Satanists from all over the country gathered to perform rituals, including the shredding of not a Quran, not the Talmud, but a Bible. Equally or more disturbing, in Nebraska, Democrats, mostly women, could be seen and heard on camera howling victoriously and shedding tears of joy after learning an effort to save unborn babies, a heartbeat bill, had failed in that state house. Absolutely demonic. And finally, for some whiplash, be like this guy.
A councilman is coming out as transgender and a woman of color. Delaware County Councilman Ryan Webb announced that he now identifies as an Indian American woman. Since that announcement, he's received some support, but a lot of backlash, many calling him childish, despicable, even calling for things like execution. In a statement Webb gave to ITMate, he says, quote, "It is unfortunate that I cannot simply be given the same space and respect to explore my identity that so many of those targeting me demand for themselves. It's possible I may change my mind down the road. The process of identity exploration is complex, and oftentimes at the end of our personal journey, we end right back where we started." Webb goes on to tell ITMate this is just his true, authentic self.
And that's what happened while we were away. Why are we even here? We should just end with that. I mean, that's the pièce résistance of it's not just trolling, though. I mean, the dude reportedly said, told the news outlet there, I received death threats just for mocking. Totally unserious, and that kind of goes for my favorite part of that piece is the before and after photo. It's exactly the same. Oh my goodness, Todd, any thoughts on that last story? Are we ever going to do anything as good as that?
What, by we, what, our show?
Yeah.
Maybe not within the next 2 hours, but we'll find out. But how does it happen? How does it happen that what we've been exposed to, you will use my pronouns, you will let us experiment on your children in the name of love and tolerance and diversity and goodness, and then this obvious, okay, let's put this to the test, and the very same people come and call him all the hateful names. That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. How did we go on this ride willingly? This place called America, and it's there with it. It's because of people like Chuck Todd.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a little bit. Before Steve apparates in the studio to tell you about our friends at Eden Pure.
BOGO is back with our friends over at Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifiers. This is one of our partners that gets the most positive reaction because of how great the Thunderstorm Air Purifier is. And now when you buy one, you get one free. No matter how many you buy, you get an equal amount free. You buy 3, you get 3 free. Buy 5, you get 5 free. Because the Thunderstorm Air Purifier from Eden Pure eliminates just about any odor. Pet odors, cigarette smokes, urine, dirty diapers, cooking odors, even a lot of bacteria and viruses. If you want to take advantage of this great offer right now, go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code Steve. That's EdenPureDeals.com. Use the discount code Steve, and remember, shipping is free.
So going through the montage back to front, let's talk about those legislators and Democrats in Nebraska. Howling with mirth, happiness, joy, exuding joy after learning that they can continue to kill babies into perpetuity in the state of Nebraska. Shedding tears of joy, as I pointed out earlier. This is why anyone, Todd, anyone who says, abortion, baby killing is a third rail, how are we going to triangulate on this? In the aftermath of Roe v. Wade, anybody who's thinking like that is a loser. We don't have the extreme position, guys. We don't. We never did. The people killing the babies always had the extreme position because it's not safe, legal, and rare anymore. It's unsafe.
That's crucial.
It's unsafe. It's celebrated, not just legal, and it's ubiquitous. It is everywhere, and that's what they always wanted. If you cannot paint that distinction, and if you're afraid of the life issue, and if you want to punt it to the states, Mr. Trump, while also saying that we need a 50-state ban on child sexual mutilation, you don't get it. You don't get it. So if you're not willing to just go out there and win the argument when it's on the table now, it's on the table in a way that it has not been my entire life, most of your life, Todd. If you're not willing to go out there and attempt to win it, paint them as what they are, which are extremely crazy, demonically influenced people who want to kill babies, and paint yourself as the reasonable one. If you are incapable and or unwilling to do that, you're a loser. Get out of the way.
That's all true. Again, how does this happen? I was actually talking with our friend Bob Vanderplatz off air yesterday about this very thing. If making the philosophical discussion makes you feel out of your depth somehow, you know, I kind of pity you, but you can still just roll tape on these people. As I said, the crucial point is we were lied to for a long time about safe, legal, and rare. They enjoy this. They think this is as defining a right to them, a human right, as anything else they talk about. And that right is killing the life inside of them. Make that your commercial. Make people see it. Because you have to do one or the other. Not if you're just some Republican in name only who ultimately has no moral core, yeah, I guess you can do whatever you want to. But if you've ever ran at all on any level of a moral template, you have to do one or the other. You've got to be able to step in and argue it rhetorically, or you just have to be willing to show these hellhounds for who they actually are. And if you won't, Aaron is absolutely right. You are a loser.
Let's take to the next two stories together. So Vivek Murthy, the nation's Surgeon General, goes on CNN to react to Dr. Anthony Fauci's statement in the New York Times last week saying that masks are basically, at best, marginal. Cloth masks are marginal protection. And credit to whoever that CNN anchor was for saying, hey, this is kind of astounding. You muzzled our kids for 2 years. Now you're saying the science is changing again. And Murthy is like, yep, it's changing again. Meanwhile, just before that, you heard Chuck Todd say, well, there's a lot of science. There's a lot of studies showing gender is on a spectrum. Science is settled on gender, not on masks. Well, it was settled on masks, and then it was not settled. It was unsettled, and then it was settled again, and now it's back to being unsettled. Am I getting this right? See, when we talk about science, or when they talk about science, they think they're talking about actual science. It's not true. There is such a thing as science. It's basically observing the observable, to put it mildly, or to put it, kind of tritely, I guess. When we hear them talk about science, though, it's not science at all. It's the doctrines of demons. It's Calvin ball. It's chaotic. The science is whatever they need it to be at any given moment to use as a bludgeon to attain and keep power, Todd.
I'm so glad you juxtaposed those two stories and the directions they went with one another, because we have multiple Vivek, the candidate, accounts there, and that would seem to be the one where he looks the strongest, the most on our side. But here's what you didn't see, because it didn't happen. And if it did happen, we would be seeing it. And why he actually did not have a strong moment. When Chuck Todd just does this generic, the science here, it's time to put that on trial. You say, okay, Chuck, what is it? Who is the name? What is the science? Where did it come from? You don't just get to throw that word out there, because if it was actually true that the science decided, we would know the name of that scientist, just like we know Sir Isaac Newton, just like we know Albert Einstein. The scientist who discovered this, that there's really more than XX and XY, there would be a national holiday for that person right now. Schools would be named after them right now. We would not go to school on the day of their birthday. We all know this is a lie. All right. So, Vivek, I know maybe you thought that was your moment there, or people on our side may think that was your moment. You actually failed, just like you did in the previous one.
One more quick note about the mask story and Vivek Murthy, this one. The Surgeon General saying, yeah, well, that's, science and guidelines have changed again, and I understand that makes people upset, blah, 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 blah. Another thing that has changed, and we'll get into this on fake news or not with this Twitter thread from Glenn Beck, the number of narratives in just the last 3 years, what was considered conspiracy to fact, is mind-blowing. And Glenn details that in that Twitter thread we'll review for fake news or not. Moving on, speaking of Vivek Ramaswamy again, and his interview with Reason magazine. Todd, I originally labeled this in the rundown of the montage I sent you as a masterclass on projection, which is true, and I'll explain why in a little bit. When I was listening to his comments again, though, in real time as we were playing them back on the montage, I remarked, should have just called this effing guy segment. This effing guy. Literally everything that Vivek Ramaswamy says about Ron DeSantis is actually true of him. It's actually true of him. Yeah. Ron DeSantis has actually been leading and then following through on everything that Vivek kind of fashions himself as, his brand, his anti-woke brand. Or as he likes to put it, no, I'm just fighting for restoring a national identity. Well, included in that is actually drawing distinctions between what is not that identity and what should not be that identity, meaning pushing back against the woke, which Ron DeSantis had done on the regular. Literally everything he says could be said of him. And then finishing it off there, finishing it off the way he began, saying DeSantis just does all this stuff because he wants Twitter trends and the dopamine hit. BS, man. You think Ron DeSantis, can you picture Ron DeSantis sitting around in Tallahassee at the governor's mansion, sitting around on Twitter? Oh, I hope I get on Twitter. He's not doing that. Actually, the person I see more ubiquitously on Twitter is Vivek Ramaswamy himself. This guy is just a clown, Todd.
Well, while the montage was running, and it was on another issue, I think, but you muttered my tagline to me, the lie is the point. Well, it absolutely is with Vivek, and this is where Steve would say, hate the game, not the player. Like, at least for now, he understands that in this world where the target-rich environment is for two people not named Vivek, it is for DeSantis and for Donald Trump. He gets to say, and he gets the same leeway. He is Chuck Todd. He gets to say and do anything, and there will be zero accountability. Again, when your moral core is such that you can bounce all over the place like this, we need to ask ourselves and remind ourselves as Christians, why does something seemingly so obvious as thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not bear false witness? Well, if it's so obvious, why does it even need to be said? Because why wouldn't you lie? Why wouldn't you lie? Unless there is something far higher and better than you. This is Thomas Hobbes. This is will to power. You are simply using every tool available to you to put yourself on top, to win. So Vivek has clearly positioned himself as a utilitarian. I will say and do whatever needs to be said in any given moment, and that might be different. He may be the most Churchillian, conservative, Ronald Reagan-esque guy here in a couple months when he needs to be. But now he gets to tee off. Didn't he actually just call him a troll at the end of that, Aaron?
He did, yeah.
He called him a troll. The guy's actually governing. He won by 20% when there was no red wave, but he accomplished it. And it's this brazen, what he's saying? It seems insane, right? It seems like a suicide mission. Not in this culture. We're the ones who are naive. Yeah, he's everything Aaron said it was, but we are the ones who are naive if we just sit there laughing at this. How does he exist in any legitimate conservative environment? How? Because there's no legitimate conservative environment. That's how.
Meanwhile, this troll who just does stuff for dopamine hits after trending on Twitter signed a law yesterday that would enact the death penalty for child rapists. I don't know what Catholic teaching is on. I'm not sure. Is it a universal Catholic teaching against capital punishment,
No,
Todd?
good grief.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Absolutely not. And anybody telling you otherwise is lying.
So this Twitter troll, which Ron DeSantis is apparently now signed this law, and it is specifically formulated. This bill is specifically formulated to challenge a Supreme Court precedent that I believe was authored by then Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy from it's been a handful of years ago, maybe up to a decade ago. So this bill is specifically crafted to challenge that Supreme Court precedent. When we talk about a culture of life, punishment for the evildoer is absolutely a part of that. Everything the left says, go back to those Nebraska legislators, those Democrats, those women swooning and celebrating baby killing into perpetuity. That is the inverse of this. It's that Florida state representative or state senator, maybe, I can't remember her name, saying, you know what? The only person who can forgive you is God. And in the state of Florida, if you've raped a child, if you have done unspeakably evil things to children, the only person who can forgive you is God. And in the state of Florida, we should be eager to set up that meeting. Todd, is that a pro-life position?
Oh, absolutely. I think I reminded everybody, I don't remember what context, but I know relatively recently, of the movie A Time to Kill. And how we just get so locked in to our lies and our ridiculous Republican conservative feng shui about, and Christian too, about the way things are, the tone, the decorum, the game, the nonsense. But do you remember the end of that movie? The movie that really, outside of Days of Confused, that made Matthew McConaughey famous, where he just has the jury close their eyes and he describes a grisly, brutal, awful rape. And the last thing he does is, to that all-white jury, he says, because it was a black girl that was raped, he said, now pretend that girl is white. And he won the day. We're so utterly full of ourselves and our ridiculous comfort and our distractions. If we don't understand that if you rape a child, you should be hung in the public square yesterday. And then go to church and say, thank you, Lord, for giving us the clarity of this level of justice, and may God have mercy on his soul.
It's what we used to do. Next, the Bud Light story. Sales apparently dropping like a rock outside of restaurants for the company after facing a boycott for desecrating their beer bottles, beer cans, with the image of a mentally ill, perhaps demonically possessed man named Dylan Mulvaney. We will be talking about this on the Overtime today, Todd. I know Steve's position, and maybe we'll rehash this when he comes back. I know Steve's position has been, with large companies like this, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to hurt them, to harm them in the long run. Well, Disney's stock price has really never recovered in the last few years since they've started going really woke, especially with the children. Budweiser now facing massive, a 25% decline year over year for the same week. That's a yo. So we're going to be discussing this and maybe reconsidering whether boycotts are indeed an effective use of time and effort. Because I've kind of taken Steve's position on this, and I got to tell you, Todd, I'm kind of rethinking this as well. So we'll get into that on the Overtime today. How about Karine Jean-Pierre? In the face of, actually, I said twice deported. This guy was actually deported 4 times, back in the country illegally again, attained a firearm somehow, was asked to stop shooting in his backyard at night so that a baby could sleep. He responds by execution-style murdering 5 people, including an 8-year-old. He's now out on the lam, $80,000 reward. And the White House's response is the border has never been more secure.
Yeah, this is where you said the lie is the point. But again, tell me who suffers from lying on the left. So why wouldn't you do it? I mean, really, they're transing your kids. They're celebrating the killing of babies. Why wouldn't they lie? Why is that a bridge too far? They'd be insane based on their worldview not to lie. And here we think the rubber band's going to come back, that somehow we're going to return to normal. Not going to happen. It's Thunderdome time. It's Thunderdome time. 2 men enter, 1 man leave. We are in the middle of a civil war. And these people understand what Nefarious said. I didn't know it was a war. Well, that's why you're losing.
And finally, I just want to leave you with this. I believe this graphic was either compiled by CNBC, maybe Bloomberg, one of the financial networks. This shows, for those of you listening, the bank collapses in 2008, 2009, and 2023. And, of course, this does not take into account First Republic Bank going under yesterday. In 2008, 25 banks failed, $374 billion in total assets. 2009, 140 banks failed, $171 billion in total assets. 2023, 2 banks failed. Again, this was prior to the bank that just failed yesterday. 2 banks failed, $319 billion in total assets. Todd, one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of time I have get yourself off the grid thoughts, you just throw another shrimp on the Barbie in terms of a variable that convinces me why.
World Economic Forum goes to China. What could go wrong? Independent journalist Jordan Schachtel will join us after this. Constitution Wealth has helped our listeners align $10 million
with their values since they came on board here on this show at the beginning of the year. You cannot beat that. And one of the things that they help you do is align your virtues and values with your portfolio, your principles with your portfolio. Those things are no longer, profits and principles no longer at odds with our friends at Constitution Wealth. Listen, they understand we are in a culture war of literally biblical proportions at this point. And it's incredibly important to align your portfolio with your principles. Constitution Wealth can help you with that. Go to constitutionwealth.com/Steve. Book an appointment today to get your retirement investments aligned with your values. We can start building that parallel economy that we need together today at constitutionwealth.com/Steve. Again, constitutionwealth.com/Steve.
Back on the Steve Deace Show, joining us now, independent journalist Jordan Schachtel, writing on his Substack called The Dossier. Jordan, appreciate you joining and hopping in today on the Steve Deace Show minus Steve Deace. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Always good to be here.
Appreciate you coming on. There are a few things I want to discuss with you today that you've written about recently or in recent memory. First of all, though, there was some sort of hubbub flap between Twitter and Substack from a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. What was that all about, and has that been resolved?
Yes, so in an ideal world, Twitter and Substack work together to facilitate open conversation. But unfortunately, they've become something along the lines of business rivals. So Elon Musk has decided to make it difficult for me and my fellow Substack writers to share our information on Twitter. He's kind of taking to siloing off Twitter from Substack because of a variety of allegations. Which I don't have the evidence to prove are true or not true, but it's not helpful to the cause of having a robust, free, and open debate and conversation. And I understand that there's two functional businesses in play here too, but I hope that in the end they can stick to their principles and figure this out, because it's for the best of all of us if they do.
Jordan, how you doing? Nice to talk with one of my favorite Florida men. Usually in the news for different reasons. But before we get off of this topic, I want to know where is Substack currently? A lot of people don't even understand how many people are on Twitter. We talk all the time about Twitter is in America, but it sets the agenda. How many Americans actually have a Twitter account? So even less understood, even for audience and a lot of people, and myself included, whether I read it or not, I don't know how prevalent it is in the mainstream. Can you diagnose the current status of Substack in terms of the zeitgeist moving forward and sort of setting the agenda and where you think it's going?
Yeah, so Substack is, for people who don't know, it's a platform for independent publishers, crowdfunded, and they actually just raised some money at a valuation of, I think, around $500 million. So, estimates are that Twitter's worth about $20 billion. So if you do the math, it's about 40 times smaller than, Twitter's estimated net worth right now. So it's kind of weird that, they're in this tussle, because you think that they wouldn't really be competitors. But, Substack has Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald, and so on and so forth, and a lot of, powerful independent voices that have really changed the conversation, specifically related to the hysteria of the past few years when nobody could really find a platform. I'm sure you guys have seen what happened with Medium.com and all that.
Yeah.
They were just canceling people left and right for being skeptical of the COVID narrative, and Substack seemed to be the place that was really defending its principles throughout the whole process. So I admire them for that, for not canceling. And yeah, I think the easiest way to understand Substack is it's basically just kind of like a next generation platform for independent publishing. It's like a suite for basically it's very easy to do it on your own without having to navigate an email list and input credit cards on your own. So you're basically paying a percentage of your revenue to Substack in order to have that all-in-one easy approach.
And to this point, too, Substack, to their credit, has been very open, very pro-free speech from my vantage point. And there's some really, really good and important content on there, like your Substack.ca.substack.com, where you can read about your delving into the background of one Andrew Huff. And if Andrew Huff sounds familiar, he is supposedly an ex-employee of the now infamous Eco Health Alliance, who may or may not, they definitely did, funded Wuhan labs and maybe or maybe not, actually funded the creation of COVID, what we now know as COVID-19. Anyway, Andrew Huff, you delved into his background after a very strange interaction on a Twitter Spaces. Tell us the story, Jordan.
Yeah, so basically I was invited to join this Twitter Spaces, which is just like an audio conversation platform on Twitter where people can engage in a variety of discussion, debates, etc. The host of this Twitter Spaces invited me in to talk about these Fauci files, revelations from the journalist Paul Thacker. And they were talking about all the lab leak stuff. And I thought that, my part of the discussion, I was going to talk about how COVID wasn't that big of a deal, and therefore it was really governments, not a virus, that was, responsible for all of this havoc. And, while it's all well and good to debate the merits of lab leak versus whatever, it's important in the context that, without this government power grab, we may not have even noticed that anything was different, right? So that was my contribution, and then suddenly I was, viciously attacked, smeared as an intelligence agent of the U.S. government, perhaps the worst intelligence agent ever, who's saying that the government is the problem. But that's, besides this, it was a bizarre exchange. Andrew Huff was involved in that exchange in alleging that I was this intelligence agent. And so I started doing a little bit of digging into this guy. He wrote a book that's been pretty popular. And basically what I found, and you can view this on my Substack, is that he's basically invented a series of tall tales about his background, about what's going on with him. And my suspicion is in order to drive sales, revenue, media coverage specifically, for his personal ambitions. I think he's unfortunately, there's so many bizarre stories that he's advanced. He claims to have been in a recent firefight with FBI and CIA agents. He claims to have been tailed by Chinese spies through the woods of his compound in Michigan. He claims that there's Black Hawk helicopters monitoring him. I mean, these are claims that are either being advanced by someone who's wildly unstable or just a total grifter and fraud. And in my brief conversations with him, he didn't. I'm not Jordan Peterson, but he didn't seem so unstable to me. So I have to kind of assume the latter, unfortunately, that this guy has been grifting off the backs of your average American who isn't so tuned into this stuff, that just kind of accepts him based on a credential he had. He worked at Eco Health Alliance, which is connected, to this Wuhan lab stuff. But he worked there, I think, from 2014 to 2016. So it was a short stint. And he also worked in New York while claiming to have worked in Wuhan. So everything is just very suspicious about this guy. He came onto the scene only 2 years ago. And suddenly he's, has this big platform. And I think there's a lesson learned in, the right of center media space, that if someone is just kind of speaking your language, don't necessarily trust everything that they say, because they might have an ulterior motive.
Yeah, to me, this is kind of like the Dominion voting system story. Dominion, probably a pretty shady company, although they just settled a massive lawsuit that's many times greater than the actual value, a yearly value of their company. Maybe a shady company, maybe has some shady connections. we're never going to get to the bottom of that, at least not in short order. But people glommed on after the aftermath of the 2020 election, these fabulous tales about corporate flowcharts and structures of dominions and the Chinese connection. It's like, I'm not sure if we can prove any of this. Let's actually focus on things we can prove. Same thing with this story as well. People glommed onto this guy, and I think I promoted him in addition. People glommed onto this guy. Now he's promoting these fabulous tales, serial fabulist, as you just described him. And there's just always this appetite for these just sensational stories and tales, when the truth, which you are trying to point out in the Twitter spaces, the truth of the matter is, the truth is bad enough that the ultimate psyop was the power grab that the acolytes of the World Economic Forum and the Western governments, the power grab that they actually accomplished. Why this inclination to always glom onto the fabulous?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the governments have debased our wealth to the tune of trillions of dollars. Millions, hundreds of millions of people have suffered because of these policies. So I find it. I'm deeply skeptical of people who kind of who are still kind of stuck in that box of hysteria, or that any of this was any of the panic was justified, beyond a couple weeks of kind of figuring things out. People still holding on to the COVID, pandemic of the century narrative, despite no evidence to prove it. I think it's either a failure of, being able to objectively analyze evidence and data, or there's just something else weird going on.
Let me just say, for one, and I'm sure the audience agrees with me, that Jordan, it would be a whole hell of a lot cooler if you were a secret intelligence agent. I'm deeply disappointed, quite frankly.
Finally, Jordan, I want to ask you about this. You wrote recently on your Substack, The Dossier, about the World Economic Forum doing a summer Davos in China. Respectfully, you titled this piece, World Economic Forum announces summer Davos is coming to China. You should have just titled that Real Recognize Real. What's going on here?
Yeah, so the World Economic Forum has in the past held these annual events in addition to their winter Davos retreat. They've had annual events in China. It was pre-COVID, where they were engaging with the Chinese Communist Party and international business and trying to create partnerships between the two entities, specifically big multinational Fortune 500 companies. They want them in the good graces of China. Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum, is very close with China. He's even received the Chinese Reform Friendship Medal, which is basically for non-Chinese people who do the bidding of China. So he received that from Xi Jinping a few years ago, and they've had this summer Davos in China that they're rebooting. It's actually going to be next month outside of Beijing. I'm sure you guys would love to attend, but it goes to show that the WEF is really, they're very much just as invested in China as they are in the Western ruling class. They kind of just see everyone, there's kind of two tiers of global society. There's the people in charge, which includes, the Chinese and American and European ruling classes. And then there's everyone else, which is you and I, and, the tens of millions of Americans that, still believe in individual liberty.
Jordan Schachtel, you can find his work, dossier.substack.com, correct?
Correct.
Thanks
so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, Jordan. Take care.
Everyone deals with pain from time to time. One of the few guarantees we have in life, along with death and taxes. Boy, that's a cheery thought. Pain, death, and taxes. Anyway, when it happens, we tend to kind of deal with it, move forward, but sometimes there is no moving forward. Sometimes it comes back day after day, month after month. And there's two types of pain that do that physically. Clinical pain, and if that's the case, make sure you're getting proper professional medical attention, or chronic pain, and that can happen from too much inflammation in your body, particularly in your joints. And that's why you want to talk to our friends over at Relief Factor. developed by doctors. It's drug-free, but developed by doctors who can prescribe drugs. All right. It reduces the inflammation in your body. Try the 3-week starter kit now. Find out why 70% of the people who do come back and keep ordering the product because of how much it works. ReliefFactor.com for the 3-week quick start for just $20. Just $20. What do you have to lose for $20? ReliefFactor.com or call them at 800-4-RELIEF, 800-4-RELIEF.
You know, Todd, if you ever wonder, and I know you don't, but if you ever wonder why the World Economic Forum types, the acolytes, the members of, never seem to be interested in taking China to task. What can China do to solve all of the world issues? What is China doing to lessen their carbon footprint? Why does World Economic Forum always focus on everybody other than China? It's because China is and has always been the model. They get a free pass because they're the model. They are the technocracy that Klaus Schwab wants to instigate and install everywhere else, especially in the West. Todd, your thoughts on the conversation with Jordan?
Aaron, you recall our conversations we haven't had in a while, but certainly during the beginning of COVID and well before COVID, about how on the nose, like various superhero movies were in terms of their plots, whether they understood it or not, and addressing the problems our culture is having. Well, now in terms of this kind of stuff, honestly, do you think we need to be studying James Bond movies and their villains more carefully?
Yes.
Because I think there's nothing remotely over the top about their aspirations. That's exactly, like, listen to all the grand soliloquies when, the razor blade is about to cut James Bond in half and he's telling about his evil plans. I think that's where we are now as a people. I think it really is.
Well, it's worse than the Bond villains. Most of the Bond villains were just in it for themselves or for revenge or power or something along those lines to prove a point. What we're seeing now are the Bond villains plus a cult-like devotion, religious devotion to statism, spirit of the age, progressivism, whatever you call it. Those are in various ways interchangeable terms. It's worse also. It's worse actually than most of the Bond villains.
The great scene in Batman versus Superman early on in the movie where they're kind of worshiping Superman when he comes to save them. Real life would be like him coming down and them worshiping, the drag queen right there. And he's just like, WTF, what's going on here?
Well, we all know that conspiracy theories are just, most of all, prophecy nowadays. But when you see the Twitter thread we're about to go through, that's going to hit home hard. Hour 2 is next. Hour 2 of the Steve Deace Show underway. Minus Steve Deace, I'm Aaron McIntyre along with Todd Erzin. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Steve is out today. He will apparate at times into the studio to tell you about our sponsors on today's show. He's just fine, health-wise, everything. He's just fine. Just a scheduling aberration that will not happen again for a long, long time. So Todd and I are happy to pinch hit today. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, as a reward for going above and beyond as employees, Steve's daughter, Hannah Hibbs, will be joining the program to torture Todd and I by making us watch some TikToks. So there's always that. It's always good working under the knowledge that that's hanging over our heads, Todd. Also, we'll be talking about the new BlazeTV movie coming out in just a few days called Reopening. That's for Pop Culture Tuesday. But now it's fake news or not, in time for another word from Steve.
Folks, there is one asset that has withstood famine, wars, political and economic upheaval dating back to biblical times, and it's gold. And you can own it in a tax-sheltered retirement account with the help of our friends at Birch Gold. That's right, Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k, maybe from a previous employer even, into an IRA in gold. And the best part, you don't pay a penny out of pocket. You just need to text Steve to 989-898. That's 989-898 for your free info kit. Find out why gold, precious metals, have been a consistent historical hedge against government debasement schemes, kind of like we're suffering through right now, for literally millennia. They'll hold your hand through the whole process. And you can't beat what they do at Birch Gold. That's why they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. So protect your savings with gold by texting Steve to 989-898. That's 989-898. Get your free info kit on gold. Again, text Steve to 989-898.
It is now time for Fake News or Not. Todd, I don't know about you. The first time that I read a nefarious plot several years ago, I remember thinking, good grief. This is like taking a gut punch or a kick to the nads over and over and over again. I don't know if you had a similar feeling when you read it the first time, or us listening in the audience. If you read that the first time and thought, man, this was like a gut punch. Because you knew and were aware of everything that Nefarious was bragging about in that book. But to have them laid out one after another, after another, after another, just felt like a gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And that's kind of what I felt like reading this thread from our own Glenn Beck. And Todd, we'll go through this thread. Stop anytime you want to chime in with anything whatsoever. This thread details what's accepted or what was not accepted in mainstream media just a few years ago to what is reality today. Glenn writes on Twitter, quote, "The government's approved media and experts shut down questions and speech they don't like with 2 words, conspiracy theory. But you can often tell what the government wants to hide by tracking what gets labeled a conspiracy theory." This list is from just recent history. June of 2010, the Obama administration told us it was a conspiracy theory to think that Obamacare would make you lose your doctor and health plan. October of 2013, NBC News finally admitted the conspiracy theorists were right after all. February 2011, I got laughed at for the conspiracy theory that the caliphate would reform. June of 2014, all those laughs stopped when ISIS formally established the caliphate. 2018, media insists Trump was colluding with Russia. It's a conspiracy theory to claim otherwise. July of 2022, New York Times admits they were wrong. 2018, Twitter shadow banning conservatives was a dangerous conspiracy theory. December of 2022, Elon Musk and journalists reveal it was happening, and the government was even involved. February of 2020, the approved narrative was that masks work to stop the spread of COVID. It was dangerous rhetoric to suggest otherwise. February of 2023. New York Times felt it was safe to suggest otherwise. March of 2020. It was a dangerous conspiracy theory to question government-mandated lockdowns. February of 2022. It was admitted they actually provided no benefits and inflicted painful costs. October of 2020. Damning documents found on Hunter Biden's laptop were part of a Russian disinformation campaign, the experts say. March of 2022. Majority of mainstream media finally accepts the laptop was in fact real all along. October of 2020, it's a conspiracy theory to claim that COVID deaths are being inflated. January of 2023, CNN analyst claims COVID deaths were overcounted. A CNN analyst. February of 2021. Nobody's pushing everyone to ditch meat and eat bugs. That's a conspiracy theory. May of 2021. To save the planet, y'all should eat the bugs. February of 2021, the Wuhan lab leak theory was a xenophobic conspiracy theory. February of 2023, the Department of Energy said, well, actually, that's probably what happened. Department of Energy, by the way, is not the only department that said that. July of 2021, critical race theory is not being taught in our schools. July 15th, 2021, it was confirmed that the National Education Association voted and approved CRT in all 50 states. September of 2021, natural immunity is not a replacement for vaccination, and it's dangerous to suggest otherwise. February of 2023, research published in The Lancet admits natural immunity is just as effective, if not better, than any vaccine. October of 2021, Fauci insists there was no gain-of-function research going on. September of 2021. The hubris of this one is amazing. NIH documents debunked that statement 1 month before Fauci's denials. August of 2022. It's a conspiracy theory to say that the White House was somehow involved with the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. April of 2023, it's revealed the White House granted the FBI a special access request. October of 2022, it was absurd to say the dollar was losing its dominance and at risk of losing its reserve currency status. March of 2023, media outlets all over the place started reporting that the dollar is now at risk. Todd, fake news or not?
That reminds me, going on and on and on, of the uncomfortable silences that are done for effect in a movie to build tension when you're waiting if a heroic moment is going to happen, but in reverse. I know maybe the fact that it's that easy to expose this may give you hope, but the simple fact of the matter is this isn't exposed to most people, which is why they keep doing it. It works. I want you to understand that what is happening to you, and it's why once they figured out who I was when I worked at the Des Moines Register, why I made so many enemies, why people hated me, because I pointed this out. They're like, oh, we can't have this on the inside. These people are conducting an experiment on you, and it's working. You are Pavlov's dog. You have been conditioned to do certain things and react certain ways when a bell rings. And they don't have to be that good at that. That's a pretty basic experiment. If you'll remember your psychology 101 at all. Well, the lies aren't that grand. In fact, the lies are the point. But you are so used to being conditioned to believe that what will happen to you if you are associated with the conspiracies and the conspiracy theorists, and what that means for you, and how icky you will be, and how that might get in the way of whatever you do in polite company. So it's why there's that many examples. And Glenn Beck, probably given another day, could come up with just as many more. We are very, very comfortable being manipulated as long as there's nothing new under the sun on this. We just have new and many more ways to consistently be comfortable. But we are as gluttonous for our bread and circuses as ever before. It's not even as if we don't. If you put this in front of people, this is what's galling. This is why Nefarious is bringing him into this conversation is so apropos, because in that movie he says the great thing about this is it's happening and you don't even care. If confronted with this, I hate to tell you, most people would not care, because they would look around and say, well, my life seems pretty much the same. We're returning to normal. They do believe that the rubber band is bounced back. They do believe that somehow they are immune to this, and that these fights are just for... You see it, it drives me mad, because you see this here in our local sports media. I know Aaron listens to it sometimes. One of the legitimately good guys in town, he's been here for a long time. He's not some radical, but he's fell for the lie. He's always talking about the extremes. There's just moderate man and everybody else lives on the extremes. As if the extreme could never be right, like by definition. When in fact, if you do any analysis of the extremes throughout human history, it's very oftentimes been the people who have been labeled to be on this extreme that have been correct. But they understand then what we understand now. It's an experiment, and you're the guinea pig. Humankind has always been this easy to manipulate. In the Bible, You're called a sheep for this very reason. You will believe the most ridiculous, false, heinous, stupid, diabolical, evil, tyrannical, violent religions in the world if you do not bend your knee to the one true God.
Todd, that is very well said. Very well said. And I'm glad you brought it back to the point that thread is not about the mainstream media or the government. It's about us.
Yeah.
It's definitely about us, which is why I want to tie this into another phenomenon we've seen as of late. And that is this supposed newfound humility by some of the most extreme high priests and priestesses of lockdown and COVID stan. Randy Weingarten, who is the Teachers Union Grand Poobah, who fought tooth and nail to keep schools closed, to muzzle kids, to make life miserable. She's now out there. I think she was telling Congress, "Hey, I was at the spearhead of trying to reopen the schools." Anthony Fauci saying something similar. "Hey, I was never against closing down schools." And then he reveals that his daughter, actually a teacher in New Orleans, just shut her school down for 2 weeks and then they were back up to normal again. This is not some newfound humility. This is not some come to Jesus moment. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Todd, a few weeks ago on Overtime, I do this a lot. I know we say what happens in overtime stays in overtime, and I bring it back on this show. Sorry, you can take me out back and flog me after the show. But on Overtime a few weeks ago, we featured a clip from a Netflix TV show following doctors and nurses around emergency rooms in some of New York City's most busy hospitals. And this Netflix show, followed this one nurse who is highly skilled, a very specific type of skill. She is an emergency nurse that flies in helicopters, like life flights. Very 1% of the 1% in healthcare can do and be certified in what she's certified as. And I thought the documentary featured her in a very sympathetic light after she explained she's losing her job because she won't take the jab. And she just said, "I don't have any long-term research. I want to have kids someday, and I just don't know what this will do, how this will impact me." I thought it painted her very sympathetically. And I asked the question, hey, is the Overton window kind of being shattered here on the jab narrative? And both you and Steve, Todd, you had the exact same reaction. You said, absolutely not. They're bragging. I was still unsure about that take until what's transpired over the last few weeks, especially with the supposed newfound humility and come to Jesus on lockdowns and school closures that some major lockdown fanatics have been having. They're not showing humility. No. They're bragging. They're bragging. The only reason why they would ever even show this faux humility is because they have no shame about what they did, and they know what they did. They have no shame. That's one. Two, I believe they know deep down. They know deep down the system they served. They did their job and they did it well. And they know that the system will save them from the damnation of ever being held accountable. So that's why they're coming out now, showing this faux humility. It's not because it's actual humility. It's because they're bragging. They are saying to your face, hey, we did this to you then. You didn't hold us accountable. So we're going to keep lying to you now. The science is just going to keep changing. What are you going to do about it? That's absolutely what this is. And that's not a commentary necessarily about them. Right. Again, it's about us. And that's how it relates to these stories and this thread that we just went through, Todd. The only reason why the government and the mainstream media, sorry for the duplication there and the redundancy, the only reason that they feel that they can change the narrative and admit what things they called conspiracy 5 minutes ago are actually reality is because they know you won't do anything to them. The people you voted for won't do anything to them to hold them accountable. So that's why they do it. It's not because they're evil. They are evil. It's not because they're religiously devoted to the spirit of the age, although they are religiously devoted to the spirit of the age and the system. It's not because they like it and they enjoy speaking in a forked tongue, although they do like the power they have and they enjoy speaking in a forked tongue. It's fundamentally because they know who we are out here in the cheap seats. Todd, is that take fake news or not?
Oh, that is not fake news. You know, this is where if you watch the movie first and then went to read Nefarious Plot and you learn more about how Nefarious got over the initial resentment about America to realize that all of its freedoms were really its Achilles heel and that he would use all of it against it, fatten us up, turn us into Wall-E, which that movie nails us exactly. We got fat, happy, stupid, and we wouldn't fight for anything principled, only ultimately selfish things. And you know, it's perfect, the joke about how July 4th and Memorial Day have basically become barbecues. Well, that's what's happened to once that happens, you're on that slippery slope to July 4th and Memorial Day becoming trans your kid holidays. You're promising that you, at the very least, just have no memory of your history, if not just flat out resenting it, which is the case now. And if you look too at the type of person, we've said this on the show before, never has there been a weaker, more pathetic class of tyrants that men of the West, so to speak, have been willing to bend the knee to. I honestly, it's truly breathtaking what we will drink from a fire hose from, just as long as we don't have to be bothered. It is the great transgendering is it, to make Aaron's point, is really happening to the normies. The normies are just unidentifiable. You may as well, if you're a dude, be wearing a dress. You know, whatever your... This is why it's the Bud Light protest, we're going to talk about this, it's kind of depressing to me. It's kind of depressing to me because that's the hill we're going to die on? Because there's been some to die on recently. We could have used this, but I'll save that for later.
Yeah, as Joe Biden said, probably the most true and lucid thing he's said during his tenure as president. I believe it was on Transgender Day of Visibility. Transgenderism shapes the heart and soul of America. Something along those lines. You bet your sweet bippy it does when you see the madness that envelops discourse, or the lack thereof, every single day. So, wrapping up fake news or not, Todd, what do we complain we can do all sorts of polemics, and they're absolutely 100% 200 proof truth. That can all be true. What we just did here, it is a polemic. What do we do? What do we do on a personal level? Because, I mean, we can't walk over to Anthony Fauci and perform a citizen's arrest. Although I'd like to try, maybe. That'd be fun. Okay.
I'm in.
I'd be in for that as well. What do you do? And Todd, as somebody who has done a lot of doing in your own district, I feel your own hometown, in your own school district, and that's had an impact via your status as an amazing dad, has had an impact on this state as well through what your daughter Ainsley was able to champion and save girls' sports. What do you do?
Well, I really wish this was easy, but the calculus that in your head about, as a Catholic, and Protestants believe in a version of this as well, just war theory. You know, you have to weigh and measure all of the various possible outcomes, the blowback, etc., in order to consider whether war is worth doing. And I think that's important in these individual examples, but not to turn the possibility of blowback into an idol. Even if it's 90% chance of success and 10% chance of failure, people are just obsessing about that 10%. You got a value bet, Aaron? This is what you guys teach me about,
yeah.
Value bet, where, it looks like 30% chance of winning. Well, that means you have a 75% chance of losing. But what do you gain with that win if you get it? That's how you need to think about these things. It just happened this weekend in club soccer, where that sport turns into Lord of the Flies, kids getting hurt for absolutely no... I don't care about silly, stupid offsides or anything like that. If you lose, you lose. But kids get injured in soccer for no good reason all of the time because of how it's officiated and how it's coached. Bad coaches think being dirty is tough, and it's not. And again, I've got a pretty good track record. I've seen a lot of soccer and raising my daughters and how they can compete at the next level. I don't raise them to be soft. But it was just getting ridiculous. And the coach tried to give a lecture to a bunch of the parents. Now, this was going to be my daughter's last year of club soccer anyways. But my wife is fed up with it too. At halftime of the game, we walked down. Everybody saw us do it. We walked over to that sideline. The coach looked at us like, what's going on here? We just grabbed our daughter and we said, this is ridiculous. Do your job. And we walked out of there. 'Cause I don't care what they think about me. Why would I care about somebody who's not even capable of hurting the cats with a bunch of 12-year-old girls? Stop caring so much about what people think about you. I don't know what's going to come of that. But people are going to see the art of the possible. You don't have to sit there and take it. And sooner or later, hopefully they won't. This thing with parents, look at how teachers have manipulated. Teachers, they're just pure as the driven snow. They have the toughest job in the world. You must worship them, yada, yada, yada. We are the experts when it comes to transing your kids, and we actually don't have to tell you anything about what we're doing to them, and you have to like it. That's where this slope is led. Coaches have tried it with kids. You've heard all the time, terrible parents on the sidelines. There's some terrible parents on the sidelines, but they've manipulated you with the same psychological experiment. It's your country. It's your family. It's your kids. And honestly, look at the things we believed when supposedly we're more educated than we've ever been. Yet we're willing to just know our place. No other generation before would have believed this nonsense, and they weren't educated. But they were brought up knowing the difference from right or wrong and where to draw lines. And I'm honestly, we're as dumb and stupid and sheep-like and able to be manipulated as ever before. So we're right back full circle where we were talking about. We are part of a grand psychological experiment. And it's a straight ticket to hell. Whether you're part of the clapping seals that are cheering on abortion in Nebraska, or you're just one of the, I just want to be nice and kind. Above all, be kind. Either way, at the end of the day, you're just part of absolute nonsense. Up is down now, and down is up. And you whatever your intentions were when you got into this game called adulthood, now you need to, just like, honestly, this will be my last thing with gays for groomers. Steve wrote a great column about it several months back, right after the new year, I think. They have done good and important work. They have been courageous, I think, but they were complaining about the tying of transgenderism to their organization and how it's unfair. And I said, if you need to take your courage of conviction today, I just tweeted this out, and now there's no getting around the fact this movement, this trans groomer movement, was born out of that organization. Not gays for groomers, but about the LGBT culture. It's now, if you as brave as you've been on this, it's now to take the next step. Why did this happen? It wasn't accidental. In fact, it was always bound to happen. We've been telling ourselves lies on that issue and every other issue about our duties to God and country for a very long time, and time is almost up.
We'll end with this. I think you did a great job of summing up what's needed at a civic and public level. Courage and having no regard for the opinions of the people who think you're already crazy. How do you get that, though, in your own life? I would posit this. There is a vast chasm between acting like you believe something and acting what you believe. Acting like you believe something just precludes you from actually believing. You're just acting like you believe something. Acting what you believe means it inhabits every bit of you. And it starts with you personally. Do you have yourself in order? Do you know yourself? Do you know what you are tempted by? Do you know spiritually what things can trip you up? And are you confronting those? And do you have people in your life confronting you and holding you accountable? Do you have your house in order spiritually, economically? Do you have your house in order? Now, these are not preclusions from you going out and doing the right thing, but ultimately the right thing in public doesn't really mean that much if it's not being done and taken care of in private. The reason why Todd doesn't give a rip about what other parents think about him is because he has himself, his family, his house in order. And so he feels absolutely no lack of courage going out and doing that. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of people who can say the same. Until that changes, they're going to have all of the conviction on their side, the conviction that we need. More in the moment.
Alert! Boy, these holidays, they come fast and furious these days. Don't let Mother's Day slip by you this year. All right? You can give Mom the regular Mom's Day flowers or make her day with spectacular flowers from our friends at Bouqs. Because Bouqs is different. Their flowers are sourced directly from the best farms. They're cut fresh. That way they last way longer. They even have flowers grown on the side of a volcano. Bouqs offers a huge selection of unique designs you're never going to find on other sites. You can pick her favorite tulips or lilies or send a bright and beautiful bouquet to make up for those gray hairs that you gave her back in the day. All right, so Mother's Day coming up on May 14th. Don't let it sneak by. Order your Bouqs now, and while you're there, check out their flower subscription so Mom feels your love all year long. Go to Bouqs.com, B as in boy, O-U-Q-S. BOUQS.com. Use the promo code Steve for 20% off. That's Bouqs.com. Promo code Steve for 20% off just in time for Mother's Day.
Back on the Steve Deace Show and joined now by Steve's daughter, Anna Hibbs. Anna, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, guys?
Oh, pretty good.
We're about to find out.
Did you know that your dad could apparate? I mean, he's apparated in and out of the studio about 5 times today just to do these live reads.
You know, I did know. He's a magical man, that guy.
Last time we did 3 questions, I think it was. What do you want to be the best at in the world? I said I wanted to be a wizard. I can't apparate, though, apparently. What are we doing today, Anna?
So I feel like I need to get my own screen behind me when I come on and I sit in his seat. I feel like I need an Anastasia Hibbs show kind of replacement. Just an idea. I'm going to throw that out there and we'll talk.
Okay.
We'll discuss after
Okay.
the show. Today I have Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader questions, and I have 3 categories: history, math, and geography. And then same rules apply. If you get one wrong, TikTok. If you get one right, then no. And see, like, if we watch a TikTok or not, it's in your guys' hands. You guys decide. So it's just like, if you're smart, we don't do it. If you're dumb, we do.
Todd, your thoughts?
That's so inspiring, Hannah.
Let's
play.
I'm a lot of things right now. I'm not sure if uninspired is one of them. I will go. Do you mind if I go first?
Go.
Okay. Geography. I want geography.
Okay, let me do this. I also realized that if I put this in the light too much, it like shows the answer. So I want to make sure I don't do that. Okay. Okay. Question 1. Which country is closest to the Great Barrier Reef?
Australia.
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's just a fact, but you're welcome.
I'm
though,
taking
anyways.
credit for being correct. Taking it as a compliment.
Okay, Todd. Geography, math, or history?
Well, I'm looking at the back of a card. Let's just take that. Math.
Okay.
Okay, is this like DEI math, or is this like actual math? Like
This is actual math.
Okay. Because math can be racist.
Yes, I thought that I would not let you guys have to check your white privilege today, so I went ahead with this one. So, if an ice cream shop sells 102 ice cream cones a day at $3 each, how much money will they make in 5 days?
How many a day?
So if an ice cream shop, wow, that was like a tongue twister, sells 102 ice cream cones at $3 each, how much money will they make in 5 days?
That's $1,530.
That is incorrect. Go ahead and play the first TikTok.
Whoa. How much was it?
Hi everyone! I don't think I've done like a general introduction yet as to who I am, so I thought I would do that now. Hi, my name is Bunny and I use bun pronouns. So who am I? I am a gender fluid, trans femme, pan-romantic, great ace, white...
What? What?
It was the answer was 1,503. So you were close. You said 1,530.
You said 102 a day.
Yes.
For 3 days.
At $3 each for 5 days.
At $3 each. At $3 each. So that's 306
times 5.
5.
Uh-oh.
I pulled the answer right from Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Really?
I'm right.
Yeah, it's 1530.
Is it really? Then I wrote it down wrong. Oh, well, it's too late.
What is
we have entered
what
a
is
loophole.
Yeah.
What are the consequences?
This is like one of the alternate realities that's opened up by time travel. We've just unleashed like the dark version of whatever planet we're inhabiting right now.
This is the new math. It is DA. Look at what you got punished with, America. It's not my fault.
I'll do. Do you have another geography one?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool.
Gosh, I hope none of the rest of them are wrong, because I knew if any of them were wrong, you guys were going to come for me.
Nothing matters.
What divides the Earth into the western and eastern hemispheres?
The prime meridian.
That is correct. Todd? History, math, or geography?
Doesn't matter what I pick or say anyways.
Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous now.
Let's go history.
Oh, you want to do history? Okay.
Yeah. What were you going to do?
I thought you said math.
I don't trust you on math. We're going to a different topic.
Okay. I was homeschooled, Todd. You can blame Steve Deace, actually. Okay, here we go. How long was the Civil War?
Well,
Four score
60,
and... No.
It's 61 to 65, so it's 4-ish years.
That is correct. Aaron?
Do you got another geography one?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool.
This is the last geography
Is this
one.
Aaron saying he's really good at geography or really bad at the other two ones?
Yes.
Yes.
What 4 presidents are carved into Mount Rushmore?
Oh, no. This is not geographical. This is not a geography question.
It was under the category of geography.
So Jefferson, that's one. Washington, that's one.
Yes.
Man. Who are the other two? I feel like I should know this. How
Yeah.
about Barack Obama and George W. Bush?
Correct.
Are those your guesses?
Final answer. Yeah.
I'm going to have to say that is incorrect.
Aaron hates you, America. That's not on me.
Have you heard of the LGBTQ plus? Well, I am the N in plus. Yes, I'm non-binary, and I'm happy being me. So come at me, you transphobic little...
Aaron, get out. I don't care how... Yes, that means the show will fade to black for no, but get out.
See ya.
Oh.
In my defense, that was not really a geography question. It was like I don't know. What's the study? Geology. There you go, geology.
I'll send you guys my sources after the show.
Okay.
Uncontexted and unvaccinated, you guys got to get to work on him and a Mount Rushmore. I mean, because that was unbelievable. I want my own geography question because
Geography's done. Aaron knocked it out.
All right, let's go back to history.
Okay. Which general led U.S. troops during the Vietnam War?
Which general? So McNamara?
That is incorrect. Go ahead and play the last one.
I'm Cody. Pronouns em, ers, or z's, zers, or really any neo-pronouns that aren't z, her, hers. I am a white, transmasculine, femme, non-binary, temporarily mostly able-bodied, neurodivergent, obsessive-compulsive, chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, non-monogamous, demi-low romantic, gray demi-bisexual, survivor of acute and complex trauma, millennial, and cat parent in mental health recovery.
No kidding.
And cat parent.
What was the answer? What do they actually expect us to do with that information? Like, why do they think they're helping us in any way?
I don't understand. I feel like these are the kids that when they were little, they would pretend to like break their arm or hurt themselves for attention. I feel like this is them all grown up.
I think you're right. That's the thing you've been most right about in this segment here.
I can't do math, but I can spit truth.
What was the answer?
The answer was General William Westmoreland.
Westmoreland, of course. Yes.
Well, I would like to say, regardless of the math problems, Todd, you were the one who actually inflicted 2 of those videos upon us.
Yes.
And so, shame. Yes. We need to get you a dunce hat, let you sit in the corner for a little while.
I was a victim.
Yeah.
I was a victim.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you,
have
guys.
a good rest of your day as Steve apparates back into the studio.
Here's a really exciting announcement that I think our Blaze TV family is going to love. It's no secret that the left is waging a war against comedy. Not allowed to joke about anything these days. That's why I'm excited to announce that Blaze TV is embarking on a mission to save comedy from the humorless left. We're launching this mission on Thursday, May 4th, by releasing our first ever full-length comedy film. It's called Reopening. It's the kind of comedy flick woke Hollywood would never release. Reopening is a mockumentary following the cast and crew of a small community theater struggling to reopen during the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a brilliant work of satire, uses humor to expose, ridicule the insanity that swept the nation throughout the pandemic. This is how you defeat wokeism. You mock it, you scorn it, you laugh at it. Join us on Thursday, May 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern for the premiere of Reopening. We're going to be streaming a live pre-show on YouTube and Facebook with members of the cast, but the movie itself will be available exclusively on Blaze TV. So join in the fun now. Head over to blazetv.com/reopening. Use the code REOPENING to get $20 off your Blaze TV subscription. So you get this film and all of our other exclusive content. $20 off your subscription right now at blazetv.com/reopening. Use the promo code REOPENING for $20 off.
Pop Culture Tuesday. Bella, my wife, and I got a chance to watch a screener of that movie last week. And I'll just say this right off the top. This is right in our wheelhouse. We love the mockumentary style of filmmaking, which is what this is. That's like The Office. If you've seen The Office shot in a mockumentary style, we love that. It's right in our wheelhouse. And I'll just say this. We laughed out loud several times. So there's some really subtle humor. Their slapstick humor is, and actually had us laughing several times in the midst of that film. And it also just really, in a way that's subtle but effective, just illustrated the COVIDiot, or the COVIDiacy, I guess I should say, the COVIDiacy of that era that it depicts, and did it in a way that makes you laugh. And most importantly, makes all of the ridiculous things that were inflicted upon us look absolutely, absolutely stupid. Absolutely stupid. And we talk about, Todd, you know, getting back to normal, or the mental block that it takes for people to get over to say that they were wrong. Now, all of those stupid things that were inflicted upon us, or at least attempted to be inflicted upon us during the early days and the middle days of COVID, those things are serious, and they had some serious harm. Where I think this movie can be effective, at least for those who are maybe coming into BlazeTV for the first time, or wanting to watch this movie for the first time, laughing at those things, I think, allows you to get over the mental roadblock that you have. Everybody has. It's human nature of admitting you were wrong, because it illustrates them in the only way that they can or should be, which is absolute phony baloney lunacy. And the movie did that and made us laugh quite a bit. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, Todd. Steve quotes it from time to time. I'm going to go bite my pillow. Have you ever seen Waiting for Guffman?
Sure.
Yeah, you've seen that movie. It's kind of in that vein, but it meets Idiocracy and COVIDiacy as well. So looking forward for all of you to be able to watch this movie coming up, again, debuting on May 4th. I'll just throw this back up there. You can go to blazetv.com/reopening for $20 off a subscription. blazetv.com/reopening. It's the first foray, and I appreciate the opposite of comedy. It's a struggle session. That's all that it is. Comedy is not comedy. It's mostly just a communist struggle session for the most part. Todd, any thoughts on that? And I know you finally got a chance to watch Father Stew last night.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Reopening or Father Stew?
Amazing how long it took for me to get to that. I mean, I had every bit of confidence that it would be good, but wow, blew me away. There's one time that very quickly brought me to tears near the end of the movie. So well done, better done than I'd even hoped. And it's about why, it's a reminder what I tell you about Nefarious. The same thing with this movie. Your faith is not a PG faith. There's a scene in Father Stew where he goes into a prison with another priest. And these prisoners, the first one that starts talking, these prisoners just start sizing him up and eating it up. And then Mark Wahlberg's character starts talking to them because, like, he knows their background, because he was their background, and just stops them in their tracks. It was actually, the writers of that movie understood what the writers of Nefarious understood. This has to be real. This cannot be about, weird head-turning, vomit-spitting. That had its place in the 70s. Right now, here we are. They're going to smell the BS. And neither one of these movies was about to make a buck. They didn't care primarily about making a buck. They cared about standing and testifying to the truth. And that has to be good enough for us.
As on the show, I have shared the opinion that I'm now rethinking that boycotts, at least against multi-billion-dollar companies that are ubiquitous in the United States, especially cultural institutions like Disney or Anheuser-Busch, probably not going to be very effective because they're so big. You might be able to hurt them in the short term, but not harm them in the long run. Well, now Disney's share price, it tanked, and it really hasn't come back up to where it was a few years ago. Anheuser-Busch experiencing some hurt, maybe not harm, but we'll see. Should we rethink? So people who shared the opinion that, you know what, you boycott if you want to, but I don't think it's going to be effective. Have we been proven wrong? Rob Eno, Blaze TV media critic, will join Todd and I in the overtime. Coming up, we'll record that right after the show. Well, appreciate you coming along for the ride today. Minus Steve Deace, we did our best to fly the ship again without the commander. Again, just a scheduling aberration. Everything is fine. He's healthy. He's happy. Spiritually, emotionally, kinetically, internationally, everything. He's just fine. He'll be back tomorrow. Until then, John 3:17.